This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Well, hello everyone and happy Tuesday. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts, and you are listening to episode 3 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Today, my guest is Jenni Thye of Imoni Events. Jennifer is the owner and lead planner over there at Imoni Events, which is based in Scottsdale, Arizona. And she runs a team of 7 full-time women plus additional women who help them on the weekends. So she is very busy. She's a wife and a mom. She's also the director of education for WIPA Phoenix, as well as the creator of the Wedding Symposium, which is a local wedding educational workshop there, also in Scottsdale, that she runs for local wedding professionals. She's just an all-around amazing woman. If all of that isn't impressive enough, she also has a master's in education. She was a teacher before she decided to take her wedding planning business full-time, which we are going to get into today. So without further ado, let's go to the show. Hey guys, welcome to the She Creates Business podcast. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts from WIPA Events. And today it is my super duper pleasure to have Jenni Thye from Imoni Events with us. Jenni lives in Arizona, and I actually had the pleasure of speaking with her at the Creative at Heart conference a couple months ago. And I don't even know what to say. She was just a powerhouse encourager and educator, and you're going to see why here during this interview. So Jenni, welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Well, gosh, I don't know what to say after that. That's awesome.
And we're done. Okay, bye everyone. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Yeah. And thanks for doing this. Jenni is so busy. She runs an amazing team in Arizona. I think, what do you have? 5 or 7
we have 7 full time, but then we have lots of other girls that help us out on weekends and during the week running errands. So yeah.
That's incredible. Fun. Well, let's jump right into it. Jenni, will you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do in the industry?
Yeah. So I obviously am a wedding planner, help brides plan just wonderful luxury weddings here, Scottsdale, Phoenix area. We also travel, but for the most part, we like to stay close to home, mostly because I have 3 beautiful children, a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So they're really fun to be around. So my husband's a local band director at the high school in the neighborhood that we live in. So we spend our Fridays at football games and we spend our Saturdays at band competitions, and we just like to hang out, go to the park and the zoo and fun things like that. So I do like to keep my work pretty local and close to home.
Absolutely. I can see why. And Jenni, I should have asked this before the interview started. I apologize. I have been calling it Imoni Events. Is that right?
Yeah, Imoni Events is kind of a made-up word, so you can kind of call it whatever.
Okay, tell me. So we have to get into this then. How did you come up with the name?
Yeah, so I had a lot of friends who were marketing majors in college, and one of the things that they did when they were branding all of their luxury malls is they would take words that were in other languages and just kind of switch things around. So Imoni actually means faith in Arabic, but the middle initial is not an O, it's an A. And I liked the look of the O better for branding purposes. So I changed it to an O. And when I first started my businesses, I just felt like faith was such a great word. I was putting a lot of faith in starting a business and being an entrepreneur, and people who are getting married have a lot of faith in each other and faith in me, hiring me. So I just loved it.
I love that. That's such a great way to name your business. Well, okay, so it definitely does take a lot of faith to start your own business. So take us back there. Will you tell us more about Imoni Events and kind of how you got started in the industry?
Yeah. So I actually never wanted to be a wedding planner. I kind of got into this via accident. So when I did my wedding, I was in pre-law at the University of Arizona, and my husband proposed to me while we were still in college. And I thought he was crazy because we were young and in love, I guess. So I let him plan our entire wedding. I wanted nothing to do with it. But when I got married in the same time as about 9 of our other friends got married. And I noticed that when I got married, had a great time. And when my other friends got married, they were stressed out bridezillas. And about 3 friends into that, I was like, okay, this is not fun to even be around you. So I'm going to help a sister out, and I'm going to try to take some of that stress off you so that everyone will actually want to come to your wedding. So I just started helping them doing things. I was actually working for the president of the college doing all of his social events. So I had a little bit of experience in doing events. But weddings kind of became what I did on the weekends after I did all my friends' weddings. They told me to do their friends' weddings. And then eventually, about a year and a half into it, I was doing people that I didn't even know. And one of the guys in Tucson actually said to me, I need your card. And I said, oh no, I don't have a card. This isn't my business. And he said, that's a shame because you do such a good job. And so I kind of went home and talked to my husband and said, maybe I can make that a business. Realized Scottsdale was such a huge destination area. And so by May that year, I had started my business and quit my job and went in both feet. I always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur and in business, but didn't really know with what. And this kind of seemed to be a fit. So
that's incredible. Okay. So I have a question then. Did you graduate law school, or did you just say, hey, I'm all in on this wedding?
Yeah. I didn't. So I went ahead and finished my undergrad in history and political science, which is basically your pre-law degree. And then I went and got my master's degree in education because my husband had proposed to me. I kind of realized law wasn't really for me because I'm such a big people person. And really, when you're working up to partner, you're doing research and working and filing and doing all of that stuff. And even though I was good at that and I had a smart enough brain to figure out all of these precedents that the lawyers wanted us to do, it just was boring to me. So I wanted to do something fun and exciting. So I went into education for a little while, just kind of as a placeholder, because that was something that I could use my degree for, but always kind of kept my eyes open for something else.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and so I can totally see you just talking to you a little bit at the conference, and I absolutely know you are plenty smart enough to be a lawyer, but I just can't see you like hiding behind, in the law library, like doing someone else's research for a case.
Yes.
You're way more than that. Not that that's bad. All of you lawyers out there, I love you and
totally.
You're amazing. Totally. And I'm grateful for you.
Yes.
So you tell me, I don't know if I have the timeline right. Tell me from when you started kind of like helping your girls out, making sure that they weren't insane by the time their wedding came to when you quit your job that May. What was that timeline?
Yeah. So basically I spent a year and a half helping all my friends out. And then it was, I think, March when the guy asked me for my card, and I went ahead and did one more year of teaching, and then I quit the following May. So I definitely started my business while I was working full-time at the school, and quit then the following May.
Okay. That's awesome. That's not very long at all.
For me, it was one of those things where I got to a point where I wasn't super busy with the business yet, but it was busy enough that it was no longer appropriate for me to be splitting my time while I was educating high school children. So I felt like it was one of those things where I just needed to make a decision, either invest into starting a business or invest into the kids. And really at that point, I felt like I was being pulled towards entrepreneurship. So it was better for me. I probably could have financially done one more year teaching, but I just felt like I was busy enough where it wasn't fair for the kids that I was teaching. I didn't have enough time and energy to put into them. So
sure, your heart was kind of in two places at once.
And really, time is a finite thing. So you only have so much of it in your day. And I really feel strongly that when you do something, you should do something very well. And for me, I wasn't being the best teacher I could be because my time was being divided too small of pieces. So it just was better for me to quit one thing and go in all in another.
So before this call, I did not know that you had your master's in education. And wow, this is all going to come full circle because we really are going to get into the education piece of being a wedding planner because and you agreed that this is really something you're passionate about and you're phenomenal at it. So tell me, within your you've been a planner for almost 10 years, right? Or about 10 years?
Oh, this will be my 14th year.
Okay, 14 years.
Yeah.
Way more than 10 friends. So tell me, is there kind of a time where you recognize that, or a kind of a pinnacle moment that you recognize as the time when you knew that you kind of needed to learn more or continuing education would be important? Or you've obviously always valued education, but in this industry specifically?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yes, I definitely value education. I think just even having a master's degree shows that someone values education.
You bet.
So basically what I did is when I started my business, I was doing it just from what I could learn from books or what I could read online, which 14 years ago, friends, the internet was not what it was today.
Not at all.
So, it was very limited, the education that I could get. So I went ahead and invested into the ABC wedding planner kind of school, if you will. I think having a master's degree in education, I found a lot of loopholes and things that I was disappointed in that education system, which I'm sure they've improved massively over the last 10, 14 years. But at that point in my career, I really didn't feel like I was getting a lot of book education. So therefore, I just started getting involved with networking groups here locally, not even necessarily specific groups that are nationally recognized, but even just little breakfast clubs. We would all go to breakfast and we'd all bring our binders and we try to teach each other things about business, photographers, florists, different people that are in the industry and do different trades. But at the same time, there's a certain aspect to business that is transferable between people. So we just started doing some of those things, and I was very grateful, and I'm still very grateful to the people in my life who had already been in business for 10 plus years when I first started my business and who poured into me over cups of coffee and lunches and breakfast. So that was really important part of my education. And then, to be honest, in the last 5 years is really when these formal education or even just collaborations became popular online, and going to conferences and retreats became something that I just really valued, because even though at that point I felt like I was a pretty decent wedding planner, I feel like you can always learn how to be better. And so started attending different things about 5 years ago.
That's okay. That's amazing. So that kind of brings me into my next question then. Aside from, retreats and conferences, what have you seen that is more formalized now that you really didn't have? I mean, even just 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah. Almost everything that I've attended over the last couple of years did not exist. So Creative at Heart, where we went to, that's a fairly new conference. Engage even, that's probably one of my first conferences that I went to, which is a lot more inspirational than necessarily educational. And it's gotten more and more educational over the years, which is awesome. And
that's a summit, right?
It is.
Okay.
It is. And it's really neat. And I do actually do a lot of other conferences that aren't necessarily wedding related. So I go to the Global Leadership Summit every single year to try to learn about business and entrepreneurs and just dealing with people and managing and leading people. And just, I go to some women's conferences that are women in business conferences. So things that are maybe not necessarily wedding specific, but maybe business specific or maybe women specific. I try to attend a lot of those things just to grow, my ability to communicate with people, lead people, and effectively run my business.
Do you think that there is a point in business as a wedding planner that you would encourage someone to also step out and attend those non-industry events? Like, should they be in business for, 6 months or a year or have a good handle on something? Or is that a good time anytime?
So here's my thinking when it comes to that. I feel like the best learners in the world do that almost right away. So they expand their knowledge almost from the get-go. So if you look at people who are CEOs and CFOs of Fortune 500 companies, they are learned individuals, and they will learn from anybody, and they will glean any information from conversations or books or interactions. So I think it's really important from the get-go that you find things, especially that are local, that are easy for you to go to, that are low cost, things that are like webinars and anything else free online. I watch a lot of TED Talks, like anything that you can find that's going to give you a good base of knowledge is ultimately going to help you in any decision that you make on the long term. So I think sometimes it's really a bad decision to just pigeonhole yourself into learning about weddings over and over and over again, because weddings is such a small, boutique kind of market.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people, and it's an unregulated market. So really at the end of the day, you could talk to a million different florists, and every single florist does something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every single invitation person and planner, they all do something different. And this is my job. Like, my job is to be a middleman between clients and vendors all the time. And whether we're working in Arizona or Colorado or Chicago or LA or New York or even the Caribbean and Hawaii, we have to learn how all these different people work, and it's never the same. So if you get yourself wrapped up in thinking about nitty-gritty and how people run their businesses only in the wedding industry, it might kind of run you insane. So I feel like learning from people in your industry is a really big positive, but at the same time, learning from people outside of the industry on how they streamline things and how they make things very applicable to the industry as a whole, because they are regulated. Mm-hmm. Things like real estate and even law, lawyers have to do the same process every single time. Doctors even have to do the same process every single time. CFOs have to do the same process when it comes to books every single time. So learning those things and then being able to apply that to where it is that you need the most help in your business, I think is a really good skill to start fine-tuning from the get-go.
Wow, absolutely. And, on that same vein, you mentioned as a planner, you're really kind of a middleman between vendors and brides and learning how different people work. So maybe in addition to leadership conferences, either reading books and also attending conferences that are more focused on learning about people and personality types and all of that do you feel like that would be beneficial as well?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. In fact, the leadership summit that I went to this past August, one of the ladies up there is a consultant for global companies. And her job is basically to teach Germans how to work with Americans, and Americans how to work with the Chinese, and the Chinese how to work with the Germans, and the Germans how to work with the English, and the English how to work with the Africans. Like, she understands cultural things. So when someone's saying to you that they don't understand your form of communication, it's because culturally their form of communication is much different. And at first, when I signed up for this conference, I thought, gosh, this lady's not going to be applicable to me whatsoever. And so I kind of wrote off her 22-minute talk as something that I didn't really need to take anything from. Mm-hmm. But as I was listening to her, I thought, I do Persian weddings, I do Indian weddings, I do Mexican weddings. And it's true, now that I think back on it, when I'm communicating with those people, they are communicating much differently than an American. Americans are very direct. We are very straightforward. What we say is what we mean. However, when I have an Indian client who's talking to me about their wedding, in Indian, their language alone, whatever dialect they have, they're reading the air around the language. So they're reading your body language. They're reading how you're standing. They're reading what your hands are doing. They're reading all of that in addition to what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So they can be taking things a lot differently than what you're saying directly, which is why I feel like a lot of our Indian clients don't like to communicate via email, because they're not very good at communicating via email. It's frustrating to us who are very good at communicating via email, and we want to keep everything organized. But for them, they want to talk to you on the phone. They want to see you in person. They want to go to coffee. And I think as an owner, that was frustrating to me for a while. But then after I listened to this lady, I was like, you know what? That's just how they communicate. So if I can make a meeting with them at their house over coffee, we can probably knock out 25 things, whereas I could be emailing with her for months and months and months and getting nothing done. So I do think that it's very important to look at other things outside of the wedding industry to try to learn how to manage people and communicate with people and lead people for many different reasons. That's just one example. So.
Sure. Well, that's gold. I mean, even if you're listening right now, and you're like me and you're newer to the industry, but so you're a newer wedding planner. I'm not a planner. I own a venue, but I am newer to the industry. This is still great information because we're going to get there. We're going to get those clients and where we're going to be planning events or doing other things where we're involved with other cultures. So this is great information for me, especially. I kind of feel like I'm asking all these questions. I'm just kind of being self-serving, and I'm sorry or thank you. Well, and that's your thoughts on that? It's really clear. You run your own industry event and locally there called the Wedding Symposium, and yes. I saw that you have you definitely don't just have wedding industry people. Like for example, the founders of the Blogettes came and did a talk, and they're really more focused on like traditional blogging and traditional digital marketing and things of that nature. But I feel like they definitely would have a lot to offer to our industry. So can you tell us about that event and why you created it and who's it for?
Yeah, we are going kind of full circle. So one of the reasons I created the event is because as I got established in my career, right around that 10-year mark, I was recognizing that a lot of people wanted to go to breakfast with me and wanted to go to lunch with me and wanted to have coffee with me. And I have a lot of high-end clients who require a lot of my time. And then obviously I have 3 little ones rolling around at home. So I was feeling really bad that I could only make a fraction of those meetings work into my schedule throughout the year. Mm-hmm. So I decided that I was going to do a symposium where I started to recognize when I was having lunches and breakfasts with people that everyone had the same questions. And they might have differed from year to year, but for the most part, people were usually struggling with the same types of things. So just like I had all of those people pouring into me when I first started my business, I decided I wanted to pour into people and give back, but I wanted to do it on a grander scale so that I can reach more people. So I started the Wedding Symposium. The first year that I did it with a really small group of people that I trusted and that I knew loved me and respected me so that I could kind of beta tested, if you will, and everybody loved it. So then I opened it up to everybody in Arizona. So it's a program that is local people investing into local people. So even though the Blogettes aren't wedding related, they are local. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make sure that anybody who comes in and talks to our industry friends here in Arizona are actually familiar with the Arizona market. Because one thing I've learned traveling all over and doing weddings in different parts of the country and even different parts of the world is that everybody's market is a little bit different. So I wanted people that were really familiar with the Arizona market to be able to pour into people who were struggling with certain things in the Arizona market. So every year we have different speakers and they talk on different topics. Every year it's my job to kind of put my ear to the ground and find out what it is that people want to hear and what they're struggling with. So Blogettes really brought a lot to the table this year with regards to social media. I know a lot of people in our industry are, in their 40s and 50s, and they've been doing this a really long time and they make lots of money, but they are terrible at social media. So really, as far as I can see, if they don't get on the social media train, then all that money that they're making in their profitable business is going to start to go down the drain, and it's going to fall to the 20-somethings who are really good at the social marketing and really good at talking to millennials. So that's why I brought them in to try to talk about that. And sure enough, after the Wedding Symposium, now the Blogettes and I have our own wedding-related Blogette seminar that we're doing twice a year because there's so many people in the industry that want that help. And people come from all over, and the Blogettes and I will start to travel as well. But that's just kind of a little bit about that event. And then we do have little symposium chats throughout the year. Mm-hmm. For example, now that I know that people are struggling with social media, we'll probably have a symposium chat in November just on social media, which is just very, very casual, probably in my living room, where people can come over and I can literally sign up these people for social media outlets. I did that this summer at a couple of the wedding planner fam trips that they do. I had planner friends that are like, I don't even know what Snapchat is, and I don't even know what Instagram is. So like, we're literally signing them up for things. You
mean literally creating their accounts with you there?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So
you have such a servant heart. That's a lot. Okay. So tell me, or can you not tell me more about your partnership with the Blogettes? Is that like coming soon? Should we just?
Yes. January 11th is our first one here in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And so people can definitely attend that from all over the country. And then we'll probably do another one in the summer, but the location of that one is to be determined. But it's one day. Their seminars are usually 3-day workshops, if you will. Mm-hmm. But ours is going to be 1 day wedding related, where we'll go into all of the different social media outlets. We'll still talk about blogging and how to get the best out of your SEO and all of that stuff, but also talk about social media outlets, having those strategies and what to do on each one of those different outlets. Facebook and blog, meaning it's bringing people to your website, which can convert into clients, whereas Instagram and Snap is more about the culture of your client and the culture of your business. So getting people to understand that so that they can wrap their head around what they're doing on those different social media outlets. And then just going into a little bit of Photoshop and stuff so that people don't feel so intimidated about making everything look pretty, since the wedding industry is so pretty focused. So.
Sure. Well, that was a gold nugget right there, is just talking about the different themes of each social channel.
Yes.
Okay, so January 11th in Phoenix, if everybody didn't catch that. And I just wanted to quick mention that everything that Jenni is talking about today will be in the show notes over on shecreatesbusinesspodcast.com. So you'll be able to get all of the links to the resources and the summits and the information that she's mentioning, because I know that for myself, absolutely, I want to kind of go back and see this. So head on over there. Jenni, if a planner is listening right now and she is interested in creating her own local workshop, what are 2 or 3 pieces of advice you'd give her?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is just try to find your tribe first. Find the people who are invested in you and who love you and who align values-wise with what you're trying to accomplish. I feel like every networking or learning type of event needs to have a foundational statement. So, for example, the Wedding Symposium is to be educational and relational. So we concentrate on the relationships with the people in the room, and we concentrate on educating the people in the room. So all that I have to do is tell speakers, here are my 2 goals, is to educate people and create relationship, and they're either in or they're out. And once you kind of get that tribe around you, then just start little, do things that are very low cost, things in your living room, coffees, lunches, things like that. And then you can start to grow into something a little bit larger.
That's excellent advice. What, as far as also something else that's local that you do, you are the Director of Education for WIPA Phoenix.
Yes.
And again, another local industry for wedding professionals, or excuse me, another local kind of networking group for wedding professionals. It's WIPA, which is WIPA, and that's the Wedding Industry Professionals Association, which will also be in the show notes. Will you kind of tell me about your position with WIPA and why it's important for you to be a part of that organization?
Yeah. So while I was getting my master's degree in education, my degree is specifically in curriculum and instruction. And I did actually fall in love with teaching. Again, it was not meant to be at the beginning, but I did fall in love with just being able to communicate with people certain informational pieces so that they can take that into something else. And so WIPA came around to Arizona probably about 4 years ago. And the educational director position was something I was really eyeing, because that position in itself is in charge of finding the speaker for every event. And because WIPA is so educational, it's the cornerstone of its organization. It was just a really good position for me to have. So my job is 4 times a year finding a really great speaker who can communicate to everybody who is coming to that WIPA meeting. And our WIPA meetings are typically 120 to 150 people. Wow. So you can have people from all different disciplines coming to this meeting. So being able to find somebody like a Sydney Novotny or a Jess Levin from Carrots and Cake who can come and talk to everybody in all types of areas was a really big goal of mine. And we've grown WIPA's membership simply out of the kindness of these people coming to speak to us. So WIPA is a great networking event. But the thing about it that's different is that it does have that educational aspect to it. And so that's pretty much the crucial part of my job on board.
And how did you, when you first got on board, when you first jumped on board WIPA and became the Director of Education, how did you start reaching out to folks and asking them if they would come and speak? Was it just a matter of an email, or did you try to build a relationship first?
Yeah. So what's nice about doing something through an organization like WIPA is it's becoming more nationally recognized. Mm-hmm. And so people from all over the country are going to recognize that actual organization name. So now that we're 4 years into it or so, it's easy for me to just reach out via email and say, hey, I'm the educational director of WIPA Phoenix, and we're wanting to know if you'd be willing to speak. Here are some of our meeting dates that we have over the next couple of years. Are there any of those that appeal to you? What is your speaking fee? Blah, 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 blah. So I can do that that via email now. But when we were first starting, I definitely had to make phone calls. And I, again, reached out to my tribe, people I had met at Engage who were big names, but I knew that they had big hearts. And so I reached out to Sean Lowe, and I reached out to different people who could come in and speak for free because we had no money, and really show people the value of being part of WIPA. So it does start small, and again, using your tribe to try to make sure that they're on the same page as you, and he was, and it just worked. So
sometimes that's all it takes, honestly, is just finding somebody like you. I mean, I just asked you. You don't know me very well at all. And to me, you are a huge name. You plan amazing luxury events. And I just said, Jenni, I'm doing this thing. And literally, Jenni was like, 100% girl, I'm behind you. I mean, yep. That's literally what she typed in her email. And I seriously almost melted in a puddle. So sometimes it just takes people to, just meet people, build relationships, but you do have to get out from behind your computer or behind your to-do list and go out and kind of like shake hands and give hugs. And that's all it takes. So thanks for saying that.
Well, and Kinsey, you also went to Creative at Heart, which was educating yourself and meeting other people. And I think that that's really big too, once you start doing that and meeting people throughout the country. So
you bet. You're so right. Well, you are very busy. You're a mom, you're a wife, you have a booming business. You are the director of education for WIPA. You also have some workshops coming up. How do you manage and kind of organize your team and your business? And these can be tools, either tech or otherwise, that you use on a daily basis.
Yeah. So one thing that I try to do is I try to look at my schedule one time a year and really figure out, what do I want my family commitments to be first? That includes vacations, that includes holidays, that includes all the big things like birthdays, things that we want to do as a family. And I really do set those things aside. So for example, I said my husband's a high school band director. Mm-hmm. The finale of his entire season is the state competition. And that's in November, which is big wedding season for us, but I never have a wedding on that weekend. I always set that weekend aside and I don't take a wedding and I give it to my girls in the company. So it's really important to first look at what I want for my family. Similarly, we go to church on Sundays, so I try not to take as many things on Sundays. I don't do meetings on Sundays unless it's an absolute have to, or if I'm traveling, I'll do that. But really, I look at what my family needs first. And then the second thing I do is I look at what my business needs. And what I do there is I look at the amount of weddings that I think I can physically take, mentally, physically, also just time-wise. And then I ask my girls the same thing. Hey, looking at this year, how many weddings do you think you can take? Blah, 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 blah. And then we have a system in place. Once inquiries start to roll in, if they're at a certain price point, they go to certain people. If they're at another price point, they go to other people. And once those people's schedules are full, we roll over the inquiries to other people, so that we try to make sure everybody stays balanced. So even I might have weekends open during the month, but if I have 7, $500,000 to $1 million wedding budgets, then I'm done. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter when those are. I try to make sure that my year is balanced. I try to make sure it's balanced between the fall and the spring. Same with WIPA. WIPA is 4 times a year. So I try to balance things out with that. And then we do the Wedding Symposium in August, where nothing is happening wedding-wise here in Arizona, June, July, August, because it's so hot. So I try to really just make sure my year is balanced, so that I'm not too crazy and missing out on life. And then similarly, in June, July, and August, since we're not doing a lot of weddings here, that's when I tend to travel. That's when I tend to educate myself. There's lots of things that happen other times a year that I would love to go to, but I just simply can't because of my commitments at work and at home. And then, tools wise, like I use a Google Calendar. I share it with my husband so that we all stay on the same page. I try to time block. That's one thing that I'm really big on, and I teach my girls to do a lot. So for example, in Arizona, we could drive an hour to an hour and a half in town to meetings. So if I'm going to drive all the way up to North Scottsdale from my house and it's going to take me 45 minutes to an hour, then I'm going to look at everything I have to do over the next month that occurs in North Scottsdale. And I'm going to try to get all of those meetings blocked in one day so that I'm not driving all the time every day. Same when I sit down to do timelines, I turn off my phone, I turn off my email notifications, and I sit down and I just plug out a timeline or I do my design plans. I also schedule one day a week. That's an office day. So whether it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I cannot do meetings on that day because I just need to sit and answer emails. And then every single afternoon, I check my voicemail, and I don't check my voicemail until the afternoon, because if you check them in the beginning of the day, it usually kind of spins your blocked time into a whirlwind. So, but if you check them around 3:00 in the afternoon, you're still getting back to people in enough time, and you're not being delinquent in that. So anyway, there are just little tricks and things that I've learned over the years. When I'm with somebody, I am with them. So if I'm with a client or I'm with my family, I am not worried about my family and I'm not worried about my client. So I try to make sure that my day is as stress-free as possible so that I can be present wherever I'm at.
That is a great tip. So Google Calendar and time blocking. Love those things. Is there something that you use to keep your girls organized or everyone on the same page? Like, do you have a project management system or no?
Yes. So we use Basecamp as a company.
Oh, yeah.
We have main office as one of our actual projects on Basecamp. So we're able to do things as a company since we are all over. Our office is located in Scottsdale, but we all live all over the place and we're all over with meetings. So Basecamp is kind of our main office where we do things that are office related that in a normal company you would do when you're actually around the water cooler or you're at lunch together or, just meetings. We do sometimes meetings via Skype or Google Hangout. And so we'll have something on Google Sheets going, on Basecamp going. We also put all of our clients on Basecamp. So it helps us so that if there's anything that ever happens, we're able to see what's going on with everyone's weddings at any given time. Similarly, when we're on vacation, that's one thing that I do is I tell my girls when they go on vacation, and when I go on vacation, I'm on vacation. And so if a client calls and they need something that's time sensitive, we know what it is because of Basecamp. We also do a lot of Google Docs. There's Excel spreadsheets and other things on Google that we use as a company to try to keep everyone on the same page. And we do share our Google calendars with each other so that, for example, I need to take linens back to La Tavola tomorrow. Well, I know Sarah's going to be in the area, so I'm going to run them by Sarah's house in the morning and drop them off because she's going to be able to take them to La Tavola while I go in the opposite direction. So those kind of things do help a little bit as a team.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great communication tool. Well, Jenni, as we wrap up here, can you kind of tell me, I know we kind of talked about your blogettes workshops, but what's on the horizon for you and Imoni Events? What are you excited about right now?
Yeah. We're kind of expanding as a company. One thing that we do very well is our design plans, and we do outsource those right now currently to florists and linen people and designers who can do paper stuff. But one thing we're contemplating, because we put so much time and effort into that, is really hiring on people who are going to be part of Imoni Events to do that stuff for us, because we dictate so much of it and we dictate so many of the details that it's just probably better at the end of the day to have somebody who can just execute consistently every single time. So that's something that we're looking into, looking at buying property and warehouses and all of that stuff. So It's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but at the same time, very exciting and promising. So that's really fun. And then we're just constantly increasing our clientele and growing and trying to make sure that people are having a great experience with hiring a planner. That's one of our biggest goals because we do know that people come here from all over the country and we want them to feel 100% confident that they have things taken care of when they're here. So just growing our team and growing what we can do for the people who don't live here, and then also for the people who do live here. So that's the most exciting thing I think we have going now.
That's a lot. That's a lot of things. You have lots of plates going on, but I know you can definitely handle it. If anyone can, you can.
Well, that's very sweet.
Well, Jenni, thank you so much for being here. I know I've said that 100 times, but I really just can't thank you enough. It seriously was such a pleasure to talk to you and just kind of have you to myself.
Of course. Anytime. I just really appreciate what you're doing as far as trying to educate people via the podcast as well. So it's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.